In this segment, I'm going to talk about cameras in SceneDesigner, how to create and place them in the scene, and how to manipulate them via the viewport controls. So right now we have the holodeck scene sitting up here, and there are already several camera entities already in the scene. You can see some of them here: fire camera, hallway camera, player camera. And if we want to switch between them, you can simply right-click on the name of the viewport, go down to Scene Cameras, and you can switch between all of those different cameras. So fire camera, hallway camera. These are just static cameras that were placed somewhere in the scene overlooking points of interest. And then those are all those cameras. Now if we're going to go back to the standard camera, each viewport has a set of standard cameras that are not saved in the scene, such as perspective, user, and then down each of the various axes. So you of course can choose those as well if you want to get orthographic views. The perspective is the only perspective viewport. Everything else is orthographic. The SceneDesigner remembers the last position of each of the cameras. So here was where the perspective was. Positive X was back out here, so you can switch between different perspectives on the same viewport if you so wish. Now let's go ahead and place a new camera in the scene. We're in the general palette. Go to cameras, and let's look at the properties first of this template. So as you can see here, all a camera really is in Gamebryo or in SceneDesigner is an entity template that has a camera component added to it. This one also has a transformation component added to it so that it can be placed in the scene. It could potentially have an inherited transformation component attached to it so that you could attach it to some other object, as I'll show you in a moment. The camera component here has various parameters that can be set up for this camera, and so by setting up different templates, you could set up orthographic or perspective cameras with different fields of view, different aspect ratios, and clipping planes. So for now, we're going to throw this into the scene and place it right there. Sort of places in an odd configuration. Now you can either manually rotate the camera, just like any other entity, manually transform it. But the easiest way to do it is probably just to switch to that camera. Here it is, camera 1. And then use the standard camera navigation controls to manipulate it. So here I'm using the middle mouse button to pan, the right mouse button to look around, middle and right mouse buttons to orbit. Let me see, middle and right mouse buttons to orbit. We're orbiting around a selected item. That's what's going on there. And the mouse wheel to zoom. So you can set this up and to easily manipulate the camera to the place that you actually want it to be in. So that's sort of the basics of placing cameras in the scene. We can make this camera orthographic or perspective, and with the orthographic we can fiddle with the frustum length to get different effects and different amounts of zoom effectively. So that covers the placement of cameras in the scene and the manipulation of cameras in the viewport. One last thing I wanted to add was to show an inherited camera that's attached to something in the scene. So if you bring up the ruin scene, once it loads up, we will see that there are multiple cameras in the scene, and one of the cameras, as you can see, is moving around the scene. So if we switch to that camera, it's a camera that's following this particular skeleton walking around. So if we go and select this camera, node attach transform, come down here, we notice that it has an inherited transformation component that is pointing at the skeleton, and not only that, but a particular node in the skeleton called node camo1. This is the node in the Gamebryo NIF scene graph that's loaded for the skeleton. So this is a way that you can attach any object, but cameras, lights, various other particle effects, as you see here, to other objects in SceneDesigner.